For 13 seasons, Kody Brown treated Meri like the wife he'd already left. And in January 2026, on national television, she handed him a bill and he had no answer. That moment didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of years. Years of being dismissed, deprioritized, and publicly humiliated on a show that was supposed to celebrate her family. And when the cameras finally turned to the money, when the receipts hit the table, the woman everyone wrote off turned out to be the one who had been quietly keeping score the whole time. If you are new here, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to SisterWives Crew and ring that bell because we are not doing surface-level recaps on this channel. We are going line by line, dollar by dollar, and today we are going all the way in on Meri Brown's Vindication arc. Let's go. Let's set the scene first, because context is everything here. Meri Brown has been part of the SisterWives story since the very beginning. She was Cody's first legal wife. She gave up her legal marriage to him so that Robin could be legally adopted as the mother of Robin's children. She restructured her entire legal standing in that family as an act of loyalty. And what did she get in return? She got seasons of Cody saying on camera that he had no romantic feelings for her. She got a husband who publicly admitted he didn't want to spend time with her. She got an audience that largely took Cody's framing at face value and treated Meri like the difficult one, the dramatic one, the one who just couldn't let go. But here's the thing about people who are labeled difficult. Sometimes they're difficult because they're the only ones paying attention. While the rest of the family was managing emotions and filming confessionals about spiritual connections and family visions, Meri was watching something else. She was watching the money. She was watching what was promised versus what was delivered. She was watching how decisions got made, who made them, and who got left out of those conversations entirely. And she did not forget any of it. Not one line item. Now let's talk about Coyote Pass, because this is where the story actually lives. In 2018, the Brown family purchased roughly 14 acres of land in Flagstaff, Arizona. The price was approximately $820,000. The plan was to build individual homes on those lots, one for each wife and her children, and finally create the kind of physical plural family compound that Cody had been pitching for years. This was the dream made concrete. This was the vision on paper with a price tag attached. What followed was a masterclass in how a shared dream becomes a contested asset. COVID hit. Building costs exploded. The family started fracturing, not just emotionally, but legally. Christine left first, in 2021. Janelle followed. Meri's spiritual divorce was formalized, and the Coyote Pass land, which was supposed to be the foundation of one big family, became the centerpiece of a financial dispute between people who had already stopped being a family in any meaningful sense. The land sat. Taxes kept accumulating. There were reports that the property came close to foreclosure at certain points. What was supposed to be a legacy investment became a liability that nobody could agree on how to handle, because nobody could agree on anything anymore. And through all of that, through the stalled plans and the unpaid taxes and the mounting tension, the question of what each wife was actually owed never went away. It just went underground. Then came the Coyote Pass sale, and the numbers that started circulating changed the entire conversation. Cody and Robin reportedly walked away with approximately $750,000 from their portion of the Coyote Pass land. Around the same time, their Flagstaff home was listed at $1.65 million, and Meri was over in Parowan, Utah running her bed and breakfast, a business she built herself with her own name on the door, in a property she acquired independently after the family's joint plans fell apart. Now hold that image in your head. Cody and Robin, $750,000 from Coyote Pass, $1.65 million home listing. Meri, alone in Utah, running a B&B. And then the January 2026 one-on-one special airs, and suddenly the Vegas house enters the chat. The Vegas house dispute is the moment where the financial undercurrent of this entire story breaks the surface. Cody's position, as he stated it on camera, was that the divorce decree specified a 50-50 split on the Vegas property. That's his framing. That's the legal document defense. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable, right? 50-50, equal, clean. But let's think about what that argument actually reveals, because this is where it gets interesting. Kody Brown, the man who spent years talking about covenant, the man who built an entire television brand around the idea of a unified, plural family where everyone was connected, Everyone mattered. Everyone shared in the vision. That man is now sitting across from his ex-wife on camera and citing a divorce decree. Not a conversation, not a spiritual agreement, a legal document. The covenant ended at the closing table. Full stop. And here's the double bind he created for himself, because it's worth spelling out clearly. If Cody is right, if the 50-50 split in the decree is exactly what Meri received and nothing more is owed, then he is still the ex-husband who spent a decade treating Meri as an afterthought and is now on national television carefully itemizing the legal minimum he was required to give her. That is not a good look. That is the look of a man who gave his ex-wife exactly what the law required and nothing more, and is proud of it. But if Meri is right, if there is money that was owed to her that she did not receive in the way she felt was fair, then the story is even simpler. He kept what wasn't entirely his to keep, and she came to a one-on-one special with the math already done. Either way, he loses the moral argument. Either way, she's the one who forced the conversation into the open. And either way, the audience now knows that the financial settlement of the Brown family dissolution was not the clean, amicable closing chapter that anyone might have hoped it would be. It was contested. It was specific. And Meri made sure it was on the record. Now, let's talk about the line itself, because it's the spine of this entire video. I don't think you get to decide what we do with it. Sorry, you are not the head of my family. 7 words at the end of that sentence. 7 words that reframed the entire 13-season history of this show in a single breath. And what makes it devastating is not the volume. Meri did not yell it. She did not cry. She said it the way you say something you have been holding in your chest for a very long time and finally decided to put down. Calm, clear, final. The word sorry in that sentence is doing extraordinary work, by the way. It's not an apology. It's a punctuation mark. It's the rhetorical equivalent of a period at the end of a sentence you've been waiting to finish for years. Sorry, as in, I'm going to say this now, and I am not going to soften it for your comfort. Sorry, as in, this is happening, and I am aware that it might sting, and I am saying it anyway. Cody's entire authority structure within that family was built on the assumption that his title husband, patriarch, head of household, conferred decision-making power. That's the architecture of plural marriage as he practiced it. He made the calls. He set the priorities. He decided who got time and who didn't, who got resources and who waited. And for years, that architecture held because the wives worked within it, negotiated within it, tried to find their place within it. Meri's sentence didn't argue with the architecture. It demolished it. She didn't say, I disagree with your decision. She said, you do not have the authority to make this decision in the first place. That's a completely different statement. That's not a negotiation. That's a boundary drawn so clearly that there's no room to misread it. And once she said it out loud, on camera, with the clip available for replay, it couldn't be unsaid. Not for her, not for any of the other women watching, not for the audience. The sentence is permanent now. It's in the archive. It lives there. Here's what I think is actually driving Cody's pattern, and I want to be transparent that this is my read, my analysis, not a confirmed psychological diagnosis. But watch the behavior across the seasons and a through line emerges. Cody consistently conflates title with authority. He's the husband, therefore he leads. He's the patriarch, therefore he decides. He's the head of the family, therefore his vision takes precedence. And when that assumption is challenged, his default move is not to engage with the challenge, it's to question the legitimacy of whoever is challenging him. Meri was difficult. Meri had a bad attitude. Meri wasn't spiritually aligned. Meri was holding the family back. Every reframe was a way of delegitimizing her voice without actually addressing what she was saying. Because if you address what she's saying, you have to engage with the substance of her complaint. And the substance of her complaint, it turns out, includes line items. Watch Cody's face in the one-on-one when the Vegas house comes up. Watch the shift from the emotional register he usually operates in, the covenant language, the spiritual framework, the big picture vision mode, to the very specific, very careful, very legalistic, that's not how our divorce decree went. That's not the language of a man who feels secure in his position. That's the language of a man who knows the other person in the conversation has done the homework, and he needs to stay close to the document. The pivot to the decree is a tell, because Kody Brown, when he feels like he's winning, doesn't cite documents. He talks about destiny and family and spiritual calling and the vision God gave him for his household. He goes big and abstract. The moment he goes small and specific and legal is the moment he knows the numbers aren't on his side. And Meri let him do it. She let him make the legalese argument. She let him build his little fence of the decree. And then she told him he wasn't the head of her family. On camera, in front of everyone. The irony of all of this, and it is a rich, thick irony, is that plural marriage as Kody sold it to the world was supposed to be about abundance, about a family model that multiplied love and resources and support, about one big connected unit where everyone contributed and everyone benefited, and no one was left behind. That was the brand. That was the pitch. Watch our show, see how it works, see how love can expand beyond conventional limits. The Coyote Pass receipts tell a different story. What everything actually looks like, when it's time to cash out, is lawyers and divorce decrees. And one wife reporting approximately $750,000 from a land sale, while another wife is running her own business in a different state and still fighting for what she's owed from a Vegas house. That's not an abundance model. That's the same story that plays out in any complicated estate dispute. Assets, titles, decrees, and people who feel they didn't get what they were promised. The only difference is that this one happened on television, season after season, with the cameras rolling and the confessionals flowing, and the audience watching. We were all witnesses. And now the financial closing chapters are also being filmed, which means the gap between the brand and the reality is fully documented on both ends. Let's spend a minute on where Meri actually is right now, because the isolation narrative that followed her for years deserves a direct response. She opened her bed and breakfast, Lizzie's Heritage Inn in Parowan, Utah, independently. Her name, her investment, her operation. She didn't wait for a family vote on whether to proceed. She didn't pitch it to Cody for approval. She identified an opportunity, she moved on it, and she built something that generates income and has become part of her public identity in a way that has nothing to do with the Brown family structure. She received her spiritual divorce from Cody, and notably, the grounds cited were abandonment, not irreconcilable differences, not mutual dissolution, abandonment. That is a specific word with a specific meaning, and she chose it intentionally. When Christine was navigating her own departure, Meri was there. When Janelle was working through what her version of leaving looked like, Meri was a resource. The woman who was publicly framed as isolated and without allies became the woman the other wives turned to when they needed someone who had already walked that road. That is not a woman who lost. That is a woman who moved first and then became a guide for the people who came after her. The network that Cody thought would fall apart when Meri left, the relationships, the connections, the mutual support, it didn't fall apart. It just reorganized around someone else as the center of gravity. And that someone else is the woman who, at the beginning of this story, everyone was ready to dismiss. Think about what the arc of this actually looks like from a distance. Season 1. Meri is the legal wife, the original, the one who set the whole thing in motion. By the middle seasons, she's been recast by the show's internal narrative as the problem, the one who doesn't fit, the one Cody has already emotionally checked out on, the one who had the catfishing scandal and somehow became more known for that than for anything else. By the later seasons, she's getting less screen time, less engagement from Cody on camera, less presence in the family decisions. The edit was not kind to her for a long stretch. And then the money comes up, and she's the one with the line, and she's the one running a business, and she's the one who got her spiritual divorce on her own terms and moved forward without looking back. And now she's on a one-on-one special making Cody defend a divorce decree on camera, and he has no good answer. The audience that dismissed her for years, and I'm including myself in that category because I watched the same show you did, that audience is doing a quiet recalculation right now because the story that was sold to us and the story that the receipts are telling are two very different stories. We were watching a narrative that Cody largely controlled through his confessionals and his framing. Meri was patient. She let him have that narrative for a long time. And then she started telling her own version. And her version comes with math. Cody thought the divorce was the end. Meri's been writing the epilogue, on camera, with receipts. That is the actual story of this franchise right now. Not the drama of the middle seasons, not the catfishing, not who said what in what hotel room in what city during what family trip. The story is the ending, and the ending belongs to the people who planned for it. Meri planned for it. Meri documented it. Meri showed up to the one-on-one with the argument already built and the line already written, and the composure to deliver it without flinching. There is still more to come on the financial side of this. The Coyote Pass split is not a fully closed chapter. The individual parcels, the individual payouts, the question of who got what relative to what each wife was owed based on contribution, and agreements made over years, none of that has been fully laid out in public. There are numbers we have, and there are numbers we don't have yet. And if this show continues in any form, specials, one-on-ones, whatever format it takes next, those numbers are eventually going to surface. They always do. And when they do, I want you to remember this video. I want you to remember that the woman who was framed as the difficult one, the one who couldn't move on, the one who Cody didn't choose, I want you to remember that she was the one sitting across from him on camera asking about her money, telling him he was not the head of her family, and doing it all without raising her voice. That takes something. That takes years of deciding who you are and what you're worth and what you're going to demand when the time finally comes. That's not impulsivity. That's not drama. That's strategy. And it worked. So here's where I'm leaving this for today. Drop a crown emoji in the comments if you think Meri is the real winner of this entire show. Not winner as in she got everything she wanted, because this whole situation cost every single person in it something real. But winner as in the one who came out of it standing, with a business, with a network, with her name on the door of something that's hers, and with the most iconic line in the history of this franchise on the permanent record. And drop the dut if you think there is still money in this story that we haven't heard about yet, because I genuinely believe there are chapters of the Coyote Pass financial breakdown that have not been publicly disclosed. And when those details come out, this story is going to look even more different than it does right now. Subscribe to SisterWives Crew because next video, I am going dollar by dollar through the entire Coyote Pass split. Every parcel, every reported number, every wife's stake, and what the math says about who walked away with what. This is not gossip. This is accounting, and it tells a very specific story about what plural marriage actually looks like when the vision meets the closing costs. The receipts are all on the table now. Meri put them there, and the only question left is whether anyone on the other side of that table has an answer for them.